Okay, so far we've worked out how to convert between fractions and percentages. We've also worked out how to convert between percentages and decimals. But what about converting between fractions and decimals and vice versa? Well, today that's going to be our focus. So let's begin. So let's review what we've learnt so far. If we start a percentage and convert to a fraction, we take that percentage, divide it by 100 and simplify. If we start at a fraction and want to convert to a percentage, we take that fraction and we multiply by 100. If we start a percentage and want to convert to a decimal, we divide by 100. And if we start at a decimal and want to convert it to a percentage, we multiply by 100. So today we're going to concentrate on this part of our table here that's converting between fractions and decimals. So what if I've got the fraction 4 over 5 and I want to convert this fraction into a decimal? Well, what I need to do is work out how many times the number 5 divides into the number 4. Now 5 doesn't go into 4. So what I do is put a 0 above it and I put the decimal place that exists after 4 and have another 0. I carry the 4 across to that 0 and I work out how many times does 5 go into 40. 5 goes into 40 8 times, but I need the decimal place in the same spot it is there. So what I've discovered is the decimal equivalent of 4 over 5 is 0.8. Okay, so what if I've got a mixed fraction? Well, there's two ways that we could do this. We could first convert the mixed fraction into an improper fraction and then do what we did before. Or I could take the second part of the mixed fraction, the numerator of the denominator, and I can work out how many times 8 divides into the number 1. Now 8 doesn't divide into 1, so I put 0 here and I put the first decimal place. I carry the 1 over and look at how many times does 8 go into 10. Well, it goes once. Now I carry the decimal place up. 1 times 8 is 8, so I've got 2 remainder. How many times does 8 go into 20? Well, it goes twice. I put another 0 here, I extend it. 2 times 8 is 16, so I've got a remainder of 4. How many times does 8 go into 40? Well, it goes 5 times exactly. So the decimal equivalent of 1 over 8 is 0.125. But I need to be careful here. I do have 3 whole units that I need to add to this. So the decimal equivalent of 3 and 1/8 is 3.125. Okay, so if I have a fraction and I want to move it to a decimal, I need to take the numerator and divide it by the denominator. I could use a calculator for this process, or I could use long division like I did in the examples above. Alright, so the final step that we've got to cover is, what if we've got a decimal and we want to convert this decimal to a fraction? Now I want to start this by explaining the process out first and then discussing a shortcut that we can use. So let's start by considering the place values that I have in my digits after the decimal place. I can do this by putting it into a place value chart that looks something like this. If I have my decimal place here, the first place value is going to be tenths. Now in this problem, the 10th place value is the first decimal place, which is 2. Next in our place value chart is going to be the hundredths. That is represented by the second decimal place, which is also a 2. Okay, so I now have 0.22 in a place value chart. What I want you to focus on is the last place value column that we needed to use. In this case, it was 100ths. And I want you to put the denominator of that place value on the bottom of a fraction. Once we've done this, I want to put all the decimal place values, and it's important, only the decimal place values, into the numerator spot. in this case is going to be the 2 and the 2. And what we've actually achieved here is we've got 0.22 as a fraction, which is 22 out of 100. So now we've got it as a fraction, we always simplify. So we look for the biggest number that goes into the numerator and the denominator. In this case, it's going to be the number 2. 22 divided by 2 goes 11 times. 100 divided by 2 goes 50 times. So the equivalent fraction of 0.22 is 11 over 50. However, there is a way to do this without having to draw out the place value chart. You can and it will work, but this is slightly quicker. If we consider the decimal 0.325, the first decimal place value is our tenths. The second decimal place value is our 100ths. The third decimal place value is going to be our thousandths. So the last place value that we use is 1 over 1000. So we let our denominator be 1000. From here, our numerator is going to be all the digits after the decimal place. In this problem, it's going to be 3, 2, 5. So now we've represented 0.325 as a fraction. So now we've got one step left, and that is to simplify our fraction. Now in this case, I know that 25 divides into both the numerator and the denominator. So 25 goes into 325 13 times, and 25 goes into 1000 40 times. So the equivalent fraction of 0.325 is 13 out of 40. So that's all fine if we've got a decimal that's less than 1. But what if we've got a decimal that's greater than 1, such as 4.25? Well, we initially just focus on the decimal place values. So this is going to be our tenths, and this is going to be our 1 over 100ths. So our last decimal place value is 100ths, so the bottom of our fraction is going to be 100. The numerator, this is where it's very important. The numerator is all the digits after the decimal place. So that is going to be the 2, 5, which gives us a fraction so far of 25 over 100. But now we've got to represent the 4 whole units that we've got. And we represent this whole number, which is the number before the decimal place, in front of the fraction. And we create a mixed fraction of 4 and 25 over 100. Now finally, we always simplify fractions. So that is going to be equal to 4, and 25 divides into both the numerator and the denominator. 25 divides into 25 once, and it divides into 100 4 times. So 4.25 is equivalent to 4 and 1/4 as a fraction. Okay, so let's try and summarize that process that we use to get from a decimal back to a fraction. Okay, so there's 3 parts of the fraction that we've got to work out. If there's a whole number before the decimal place, we're going to create a mixed fraction by putting that whole number in front of the fraction. The numerator part of our fraction is the numbers after the decimal place, or to the right of the decimal place. The denominator of our fraction is going to be the same denominator as the last place value in our decimal. Finally, once you've got it, we need to remember to simplify. And finally, here's our chart with all the steps completed. This chart can be a very good reference point to work out what we need to do when converting between fractions, percentages, and decimals. But to finish, I want you to practice converting between fractions and decimals for yourself. So here are 4 problems for you to have a go at yourself.